Not only are they beautiful, but quilts really can tell an amazing story. The works of one woman with West Michigan ties, now on display at Lakeshore Museum Center in Muskegon. Here to tell us more about a new exhibit called Who is Rosie Lee Wilkins? Piecing Together Her History is Brenda, collection manager. Good morning, Brenda.
Good morning.
Well, we touched on it just a little bit there in the introduction, but what exactly is this exhibit all about?
Sure. The exhibit is going to feature a fraction of the quilts made by a Muskegon woman, Rosie Lee Wilkins. She was born in Hattiesburg, Mississippi in 1901 and moved to Muskegon in the late 1940s with her family. And this is where she lived until she died in 1994. She started quilting when she was about 11 years old and continued her entire life. So these are really just a small amount of what estimates about 100 quilts she made. So not only are visitors going to get to see these beautiful pieces and learn about her and her life, but they're also going to get a behind-the-scenes look at what museum staff did to just figure out who exactly Rosie Lee Wilkins was.
And where did the idea come from? I assume some of those quilts are right behind you, correct?
This is one of her quilts. It's a log cabin pattern that she made about the 1980s. Our exhibit designer, Kate Curto, reached out to Michigan State University Museum. They have a large textile collection, and you'll see some of Rosie's quilts from their collection in the exhibit. But they also manage a national database of quilts and quilt makers called the Quilt Index, and they were the ones that gave us Rosie's name. In 1986, they interviewed her as part of the African American Quilt Discovery Day, which was a statewide event. And from that came a book, African American Quilt Makers in Michigan. And then they had a series of exhibits in the 80s and 90s that featured the women and their quilts. And this is the first time she's going to be exhibited in her hometown of Muskegon.
And I'm understanding you guys ran into a couple of struggles when it came to doing some research on her.
Absolutely. One of the most important things for us was to make sure we reached out to her family and friends and included them in the process and made sure they knew we were doing this exhibit. And because of the stay-at-home order, it closed a lot of museums and libraries, archives, places that we use as researchers to get information. We knew that there was an interview from that 1986 event at MSU. So we had to start at the beginning. We had a few facts that we knew about her, and we just tried to rely on digital resources and what was available on the internet, and just picked up the phone and called places. We knew her church, we reached out to elders there, and we just kept hitting dead ends. We found a lot of people that knew Rosie. Some people didn't even know that she quilted, though, and definitely nobody knew her family.
Just quite the background. I love this. So when can people see this, and how long will it be there for?
Sure. The exhibit is going to open on November 9th, and there are a series of behind-the-scenes members tours on the 9th, 10th, and 11th, so it's a great time to become a member of the Lakeshore Museum Center. And it's going to continue until April 24th of next year.
And it sounds like the people you tracked down were able to share a couple of stories. Anything brief that kind of jumps out at you real quick?
Sure. We had a great-granddaughter of Rosie that we were able to track down through a genealogy website. And she remembers that Rosie was a little bit of a night owl, and she would sometimes stay up really late quilting and would fall asleep in her chair just surrounded by her quilting supplies. She would wake up and just start quilting again. And I hope visitors are going to be able to see that passion and love of quilting in the pieces.
Love it. Well, thank you so much for your time this morning. Sounds like it's an extraordinary exhibit. Again, on display there at the Lakeshore Museum Center in Muskegon, the 9th through April 24th. So lots of time to get there and check it out. Go to lakeshoremuseum.org to learn more.